So that was intense, right? So as you can see, when I did that monologue, I was in a tremendous amount of pain. Um, I was 35 pounds overweight because of just the stress of what I was doing, the things that I was putting my body in hopes of getting pregnant. And I was, it just was just a hard, very, very hard and painful time. Um, and let me share a little bit of that with you in terms of what happened afterwards. So after we filmed, when you film a movie, you film it early and then it goes through editing and a lot of things take place. So there's a lot of time. That's why when you see a movie that it comes out in the theaters or wherever you see it on a streaming network or television or theater, it's been like the actors and the crew and the team who made it like a year before you see it, sometimes 2 years, or if you're talking about a Marvel movie, it could be 2 or 3 years because there's so many things involved. Anyway, God began to heal my heart after I shared that monologue. And I remember when we were looking at it as producers toward editing and going through all the things needed to put it out, I began to have second thoughts about putting it out because at that time I was filled with so much shame and self-hate. At that time, you can hear it in the monologue. I blame myself. I felt so bad at that time. And I remember thinking, I don't want women who are going through this to think that I think it's okay to feel this way about yourself. And my producer, one of the producers on the project with me, said, you know, Erin, but that was a very real part of your journey. That was a very real part of what you were thinking. And when we do STEM, and when we did that movie, and when we did STEM the play, and STEM went over a myriad of issues. When we did the play, at that time I had an eating disorder, so I told the truth about that. So our whole thing when we do STEM is to tell the truth, and and not just any truth, but the raw, unvarnished truth. And to stand on stage naked, unashamed in our pain and our fear and whatever we were feeling with the story that we were telling. And they're always true stories. And a part of that journey for me was not liking myself, not trying to control. And I talk about all that was especially why I wanted to share that monologue with you, because at the end I had to surrender. I had to give up my control of trying to force my body to do what I wanted it to do. I had to surrender being mad at myself, feeling the hatred and shame I felt for myself in that season. And because I've also shared, you know, with you my marriage, I'm sure maybe I want to answer some questions that I'm thinking that may come up before I go on to the next thing. Is that why we got divorced? Is that that time was very hard for me because I went through that alone. Even though in the monologue I shared that my husband was at that one doctor's appointment, that was the only one that he came to. So I went through the journey of even fertility, of trying to get pregnant alone, of seeing fertility doctors, of hoping and dreaming and wanting this for our lives and our union alone. Although my husband wanted, my then husband, now ex-husband, at that time, he wanted us to expand our family. I was in a relationship where a lot of the responsibility of that, not a lot, all of it was kind of put on my shoulders. It was like, well, figure it out and then get back to me and tell me how. It was kind of like that. And so even the pain of it and the hope of it, all I dealt with by myself. The hope, the prayer of wanting that to manifest, the pain of feeling inadequate and less than, all of those feelings I had, I dealt with alone until that one day that I called him into the room and I said, hey, I'm going to surrender this and let this go. But up until then, I had been doing that journey by myself. And even after that, when I told him that, we only had that one moment together. And that was kind of the thing that didn't work, and it was hurtful and harmful in that journey, that in a marriage I was very much alone, that there wasn't a true partnership where I had someone I could lean on and who could kind of cover me in prayer and take care of me, where I could lay my burden down and be held. And there was not that person there for me. And that was what it was. I was still, as you know, willing to fight for the marriage, willing to believe for the marriage, willing to work at the marriage. But my husband was not, my then husband, my now ex-husband was not uh, prepared to do any of those things. I do not know if he did not really offer an explanation as to why he ended our marriage, other than he did not love me and did not want to be in our marriage anymore. So I, of course, asked and tried to fix things, because that's who I am, right? I go in, roll up my sleeves, and try to fix it. But I had to eventually surrender that. He had begun something while we were in our marriage with another person, and I had to surrender and let go and trust God that he had me outside of that marriage. You can't force, and nor should you. I do not believe, force someone to be. Marriage is challenging. It's a lot, and it's an all hands on deck moments, you know, and if somebody has left emotionally and physically and has no desire to return, for me and my sanity and my self-worth and my peace and my faith, I let that go. I surrendered my marriage. And I'm just sharing that with you because I've shared so much with you. And inevitably, I'm sure when you see that monologue, you're wondering, there were some people who've been following, you know, this journey and my journey, and you're wondering if that's the reason. I can tell you right now, I don't know. I don't know. But I do know that I have peace, and I wake up in the morning and I love me and I trust God and I keep it moving. So back to the monologue. I have some notes that I want to share with you, because, you know, I want to get it all out. So like as I said, you saw from that monologue, I was in a lot of pain at that time. I gained 35 pounds. I condemned myself in ways that were unhealthy and untrue. And so if you know someone who is going through that journey, that is often something that women do. We condemn ourselves. I also want to share this with you, that's important for me to share. If you know someone who's going through that journey, sometimes, and people are well-meaning, they think they should tell a woman who's going through her fertility journey or finding out that she's not able to have kids the way she thought she was going to be able to, that, hey, had you heard about adoption? And don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Everybody needs to get to their place, to that space and that place themselves. And not being able to give birth in the way that you've always hoped and dreamed is something to mourn. And every woman deserves her moment to mourn that. Adoption is not some new thing that no one's ever heard of. So if you think you're introducing an idea that's not been thought of before, let me help you. You're not. We know about adoption, just like we know about McDonald's. You're not telling somebody, hey, have you heard about this place where they, you know, have these 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickled onion on a sesame seed bun? Yeah, we've heard of it. We've all heard of McDonald's. We know about it. Women who are going through a fertility journey have heard about adoption. Now, whether or not that's right for their marriage or, you know, them, that's for her and her husband or herself to decide. And you doing that only in the moment, I'm sure these are not your intentions, but I'll tell you how it feels. It feels trite, because the pain that person is in, and especially if they're in a marriage and they're working and they're trying hard to have a child, maybe they're going through in vitro, maybe she's going through getting hormonal injections, maybe she's going through her necessary, you know, journey of faith, as I was going through. There just could be a myriad of scenarios that are applicable. Don't decide that she doesn't know about adoption. She's just not there yet. And eventually she may get there, or that may not be right for them. For me, I was completely open to it, absolutely open to it. And that was going to be the second step. If we had stayed together. I would have loved to adopt, because after I mourned, because I did want to have a baby in the natural way. I wanted to pass on the DNA of my mother, my grandmother, and her grandmother before her. That was important to me, and I'm not ashamed of that, nor do I think any woman should be ashamed of wanting to pass on that family legacy in that way. After I mourned it, I was then ready to pass on the love, the family legacy, and the heritage I had in my heart with a child. And so I was going to be just as excited and just as in love with my baby, her or teenager or adolescent or whoever God gave me to be a mother to, or to mother, had my marriage lasted. For me, adopting was not something I wanted to do as a single woman. And so it may be something that I do if I remarry. So that door for me is still open, but everybody has their journey. And if I've shared nothing with you, is to respect other people's journey. So I just wanted to give you that FYI. And women, your friends, or who who are on a fertility journey, trust me, they're thanking me for that. And I hope you adhere to that. Don't mention adoption unless they bring it up, or unless you're very close and you know that they're ready to hear that. But thinking you have this new bright idea that they've never thought about is just wrong. They're not there yet. They know about it. That may not be what they want for their lives. Anyway, back to us in the sixth revelation, and surrender. So as you saw from that monologue, I was in a lot of pain because I tried to control my situation the best way I knew how. And I felt like I was doing it in faith. And I was doing it in faith for a season, but it turned into something else. And it turned into me trying to kind of force something. And we've all been there, right? Where you're, at first it's faith, at first it's belief, and then it's not happening. And then you try to force it. Why isn't it? So I had to surrender. I had to surrender. I had to surrender my hurt. I had to surrender my expectation. I had to surrender my control. And I had to surrender having a baby in that way. I had to surrender that dream. And is there a part of me that is still sad that I'm not a mother, and that I wasn't able to have a baby biologically? Yes. Yes, absolutely. I am still sad about that. That still hurts me. And I don't know if I won't ever feel that. I don't know. I don't know, but I can tell you this, that I wake up every day happy, not every day happy, but most days happy. I don't wake up sad about that. If you ask me about it, there is something that there's a sadness that remains, because I had hoped that things would happen that way. I don't know if I'll adopt and that'll fill that void and I'll never feel that way again. I don't know. I have a cousin who adopted two beautiful children who she loves completely and who she's poured her whole heart into. But if I talk to her in our quiet times when it's just me and her, she'll say to me that, there's a part of her that wishes she could have also had her own child out of her body with the children that she has now, who she loves more than life itself. So I don't know if, for some people, there's always that kind of feeling of, wow, I wish that thing could have happened too. But do we let it stop us from feeling joy and having fun and experiencing life in all of its fullness? No, I have not let that stop me, but I absolutely had to surrender it. And so I want to talk to you this week as you begin to get to recognize or get to the root of what you know that it's time to surrender. So if you look, there is a downloadable for you. I always do this. It's, where it is. So there's a downloadable for you, and I want to go over it to you. So as I talked about, I want to go over it with you rather. So as we talked about, your journal questions were more about change, and that will serve you when we get to the Revelation Challenge. So know that I do know what I'm doing. I am thinking of it all the time. So the things about change, we're going to use more in the overcome. So now this week, we're going to work on recognizing the root cause of what has been holding you back from surrendering what you need to surrender. Okay. So what we learned in the first and third revelation is usually pertinent to dealing with the reasons why it may be hard to surrender something. Okay. So I think you remember that I shared that I didn't want to surrender the anger and the pain I had over my divorce, because I had actually begun to let that pain and anger define me. And I kind of felt like without the story of how badly and how poorly I was treated, I didn't know what to do in place of the pain in that season. But when I surrendered it to, okay, this person treating me like this, not because of who I am, but because of who they were at that time, I was able to surrender it. I was able to say, you know, what happened to me wasn't okay. And it was definitely something that should have angered me, and it wasn't justified, and I should have been pissed off, but it's not who I am. And what life truly has for me, or what God has for me, that's the last word on my journey. That's the last word on my identity. That's who I am, not who this person is or what happened to me. That was a circumstance and a situation. So I surrendered that anger and that pain. I let that go, and I chose to forgive that, because I wasn't going to allow it to keep me in a prison. We talked about that in forgiveness. And so I had to surrender it so I could be free. Free to heal, free to prosper, free to succeed in other ways, and free to one day love again when I decide that I'm ready to love again. So surrender is about setting yourself free. That's why I say hands up, surrender. Because when people turn themselves over to the cops or whatever, your hands are up, because you're not holding on to anything. We're surrendering. Because when we put our hands up, even Philip, put your hands up right now. There's a sense of freedom, because you can't hold on to anything. You're almost completely vulnerable. So you're letting it go. You're setting yourself free. I'm not a mom. That makes me sad. Not every day, but like I said, sometimes when I see a beautiful little cherub little baby and I look at them and I look at a mother, I get a little sad that that didn't happen for me. But those things kind of last an instant, and then I go on to the next thing. And like I said, I don't know if my mom journey is over. If one day I won't adopt a baby, an adolescent, a teenager, I don't know. But what makes me glad every day is the beautiful nieces and nephews I have. That makes me very happy. They call me, they got me a mug that says BAE, best auntie ever. And I cry about it right now. I'm like, I love those kids so much. I love my nieces and nephews, and it's such a gift to have them in my life. They bring me such great joy. And I'm sure you probably think you're the best auntie ever, but I hate to ruin that for you, because I'm pretty sure I am, because I have the mug to prove it. So I'm pretty sure that I'm the best auntie ever. And so that gives me great joy. The TV shows that I've created have given me great joys. The movies that I co-produce and that are out there that are blessing other people's, my ideas now are my babies, and they're what the world sees. And those ideas help people laugh. They help people cry. They give other people jobs who come in as crew to work on them. So I'm creating projects that allow other people to make money to feed their families. So those things bring me joy. But if I was still sad somewhere, feeling sorry for myself over the fact that I didn't get to be a mom the way that I hoped, or the fact that my marriage didn't turn out the way that I hoped, I could have never gone forward and created those other things, because I would have been too busy having a pity party and worried about the things that didn't happen the way I wanted them to happen. I've chosen to surrender that thing so I can move on to other things and trust God and life to bring me joy and other things to connect with and fulfill me in other ways. But you have to surrender to get there. You have to surrender to get to that space. So let's go over your downloadable. Let's go over the things that you are going to identify and recognize that you need to surrender for yourself in your own life. And then we're going to go over how you're going to do that. So look at your downloadable, and I'm about to go over that downloadable with you. All right, next tape.